Okay, off the back of Run Week, we received loads of great and inquisitive questions from you guys. So today we thought we'd answer a bunch of them.
Absolutely, Mark. So first off the bat, we have a question from Evan McDougall, who asked, my only question as a triathlete is what type of run should we do for our brick runs? So firstly, I'd say that brick runs are definitely something I always like to include because I had the time racing professionally, I had all that time to put in bricks. And the most obvious brick for me was always to add 30 to 40 minutes easy running off the back of my longer ride in the week.
Yeah, and they're brilliant actually. They kind of hit two things at once. So that back end fatigue, that strength for endurance off the back of that bike, but then also actually getting us used to the running off the bike coming out of T2, that feeling of jelly legs, the mentality as well that you need, so that strength mentally. So yeah, great question. Next one is from Andrew Lingwood, and they've said, at the moment I am aiming for a 16-minute 5K, which is a cracking time.
Sure is.
They do a long run, hills and sprints, intervals or tempo, and an easy run per week. They feel like they should be doing 2 threshold or tempo runs per week. Is that advisable?
Firstly, we would say you don't need to be doing 2 threshold or 2 tempo or 2 speeds, but definitely 2 type of sessions that incorporate those type of efforts, right?
Yeah, it all gets a bit confusing because threshold and tempo tend to be used interchangeably. You could argue there is a difference between the two, but let's assume they're the same thing, tempo and threshold. So you want to do 1 of those per week, not 2, because they're quite a demanding workout for you and put a lot of stress on the body. The other session is a speed workout. So that's focusing on the top end. The threshold is focusing on bumping that lactate threshold up and probably a little bit close to something like a half marathon race pace. And then if you have time, a longer run would be really useful. But you could argue for a 5K, you don't really need to be running much more than 60 or 70 minutes for your long run.
Yeah, so good luck with that, Andrew, and please let us know if you do manage to hit that target because that's blooming good running for you.
Yeah, cracking time. Well, now we had a great question actually coming in regarding our 3 weekly run workouts video, and they, in short, have asked, what about hills? When do we put them in? And that is a very good question. We had a few people asking that. That one came in specifically from Edward Green.
Yeah, now we didn't mention hills in that particular video. Even though hills are actually a really useful type of session, there's so many that you can add in, but I think personally you would definitely add in hills, maybe in replacement of a speed type of workout. And again, I would like to add them a little bit more early in the season as you're approaching a target race. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually tend to advise doing a lot of hill workouts during the off season as you're coming into kind of the winter. Great as a strength tool, activating the muscles and injury prevention. And then as we start to get closer to race season, you're wanting to improve that top end speed, so you bring that speed session in that we've already spoken about. But every so often you might want to just drop that out in place of a hill session. So yeah, they are very useful and it's good to just keep that going.
Yeah, and it takes impact away as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, and I know some people that struggle with injuries actually quite often use it for that reason.
Next question we've got from Lisa Pett, who is asking really about footfall and where we have our placement in regards to our run form, really, aren't they? Because
yeah.
we did a video talking about perfect run technique.
Yeah, so a lot of people are asking about where our foot lands, whether it's forefoot, midfoot, or heel strike. And it's a very good question. And actually, we kind of, by actually having good technique in the rest of our body, are looking forward, head at the right angle, good posture, actually our feet should kind of almost fall into place and strike it in the right motion.
Yeah, so hopefully the theory being if you get everything set right from the top, as in our head, the chain of the body follows suit, right?
Yeah, I mean there is a lot of talk about you must run forefoot or midfoot and you should never heel strike, and I understand the theory behind that. Heel striking is almost like a braking force and can cause injuries, but actually you don't want to try and dramatically change your own technique. You actually see a lot of top elite runners actually running with heel strikes, so it's not a blanket no-go. Just try and work on the rest of your technique.
I think it might case for a whole new video actually, Mark.
Yes, absolutely. Now moving on to Finn Edwards, and they asked, does anyone find that as they get tired, the head starts to lean backwards?
To answer your question, yes. I've been there and I've definitely raced some other guys who really kind of almost turned themselves into like a big C. You know, they were leaning back so much that, yeah, they were definitely not looking like they're having the best of run form. So, but as you say, it can go both ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to actually almost like lean forward, but I guess that's almost me trying to make it easier for myself, like trying to fall forward. What I try to do in this sort of instance is actually, I have key points I think about. So I've got this thing called arrows. So I almost think about my knee drive, as an old coach taught me that. And that sort of helps with my posture as I'm running along. And I try and maintain that, or at least I think I am.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point there. And I guess the next question after that would be from Fernando, who asks us, what is a long run for a marathon in kilometers, by the way? Yeah,
no, this is quite a good point actually, because for marathon running, it's actually quite rare that you would cover the marathon distance before race day. I mean, have you?
No, I never did it before a race. No, not that far. Not quite 42.
And what would be the peak for you then?
The most I've ever run would have been 35, but that was a kind of one-off. So personally, I would say no more than 32 kilometers or 20 miles for those that aren't used to the kilometers.
Yeah, I'm not so experienced in this department, so I'm passing on to Fraser.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's always very subjective. You've got to be careful of the time on your feet because you can start stressing your body too much. So let's say 3 hours as a cap, because that's a really long time to be doing anyway. And that type of distance or long run, you would hope to be achieving 3 weeks out from your target race, and then after that, you would start tapering that off until race day. Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of.
Well, yeah, I guess the takeaway point is that you want to get the physiological benefit, but you actually don't want to stress your body so far that actually arriving on race day, falling apart, or actually really quite fatigued. So, yeah. Trying to cover the actual marathon distance isn't totally necessary.
But it does build a lot of confidence knowing that you've run really quite a long way before the marathon, which, let's be honest, is a long way.
Yeah, well, now moving on, Plumsy28 has picked up on my reference to running on asphalt or tartan. And they said, I've never run on tartan. Is that just for the Scottish viewers?
Well, I can see why you might think that. But I
mean, I love the vision and the image of Fraser just gliding across a tartan track.
Have I got to choose my clan tartan?
But in actual fact, there is actually a running surface that is used for athletics tracks that is called tartan.
Yeah, now on a slightly serious note, this refers to the very first manufacturers of an all-weather surface running track was a brand called 3M, and they were very famous for having created Scotch tape. So this was just a continuation of that Scottish reference, and it's stuck ever since.
I love it. Well, now moving on, and Steve Ward has said, Ari, running faster, I would assume running faster depends on the event you are training for, e.g. are you running for a marathon in a full triathlon, or are you running a very different kind of event, such as a 5K or in a sprint triathlon?
Well, Steve, the answer is, in simple terms, yes. Yes, running for a marathon or a 5K is a completely different sort of kettle of fish, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I do remember Jan Frodeno actually saying when he switched from Olympic distance triathlons and draft league or ITU racing to Ironman distance that yes, he had to back the speed off in some of his speed sessions. So say he was doing 6x1K in a speed session, sub 3 minute Ks, he then backed that off to like 3:10, 3:15, which is still incredibly fast, don't get me wrong, but he's not going quite as insanely fast because it's just not necessary. He's getting that physiological benefit of a speed session without the impact and the stress on the body, but still a bit of speed there.
And it's all about being specific to your race distance, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're not saying cut it, it's just being specific in your approach to it.
So our next question from Natalie is, does a slow run benefit us for going faster? Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, I mean, we do talk a little bit about polarized training we've spoken about on the channel before, and that is all about this kind of polarized approach to our training. Our easy runs are really, really easy, and our hard runs are really, really hard. And the Brownlees are a prime example of this. If you go for an easy run with them, you're literally walking. It's so slow, but then when they do their hard runs, they are through the roof fast. So it really does work, but it obviously only works if you have the time available to do hard runs as well as easy runs.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely key, isn't it? Because one thing I always sort of got drummed into me as a youngster going to running club was if you go and run slow all the time, you'll end up racing slow. But that's only the case if that's all you do. So yes, they definitely work, but as long as Mark says they're in conjunction with something quite a bit faster.
Yeah, and we've actually discussed this a little bit in a video with with Heather and myself previously.
By running faster, it is actually enabling us to tap into these top-end speeds and essentially unlocking this greater speed range within ourselves. And actually by running fast, it can also help to improve our efficiency as runners. And we all know that efficiency is what we're striving for. By being more efficient, we can run faster.
Well, the key, as you say, Mark, to these sessions is actually hitting those top-end speeds. So in order to do that and to get the benefit from it, we're actually going to break it down into intervals or reps. One example workout is the minute hard, minute easy session. As the name suggests, after warming up, just start to run harder, but not quite flat out for 1 minute, followed by an easy minute. Repeat this 4 to 6 times to start with, and then gradually increase the number by 1 or 2 reps each week.
So our final question that we've got here from Craig Orrell actually is, have you ever thought of entering the human versus horse race as a GTN challenge? Have we?
Funny you should ask. Well, it is certainly on the radar, and essentially the event is that you race against a horse around the same course, and I think the horse pretty much wins 95% of the time. I think there's only been 4 runners in the whole history that have beaten it. So yes, with Heather's pedigree of horse riding, I think we are looking at maybe doing that in the near future, so watch this space. Now, if you like today's Ask GTN, then please do hit that thumbs up button, and if you'd like to see all our other videos, just click on the globe and subscribe.
And if you've enjoyed watching this video about asks and you'd like to see some others, well, you can find a playlist for them here.